With November around the corner, the big question returns. What's the best writing software? It kind of feels like a never-ending question in the community, and I thought, why not try some out and see if we can get an answer. Hello, I'm Romelia. I'm an indie author, and I like to try new things, and I'm surrounded by computers, so why not try different software? When I started planning for this video, it was important for me to include free resources, and while I do have paid options on this list, you don't need to pay for a writing software to be a good writer. But I want to start with the big free one, Google Docs. I think most of us have used Google Docs in some way, shape, form, capacity, especially in our writing journey, and it's still one of the main ones, the big ones people talk about, despite the side bag of controversy. And I can see why it's a big one. It works very similarly to other word processors, so it's easy to get into and it's easy to understand. And I believe where it shines the most is in the ability for collaborations. More than one person can be in the document at once, and it's great for feedback, beta readers, alpha readers, critique partners, editors in some cases. It's also compatible with a lot of different formats. You can import or export Word documents, PDFs, some other I haven't used, and it still keeps its content, including track changes and comments. It's also one of those softwares where you can easily change between devices. The main reason why I wouldn't recommend it for drafting is because it tends to get a bit laggy and clumsy when there's high word count. And while this is also kind of true for feedback cases, I just don't have a better alternative for it. So personally, I wouldn't use it for drafting, but I do use it for beta readers and critique partners and such. I'm also the kind of person who prefers to store things locally, because then I always have it. I would rather back up my things on different hard drives and different computers rather than have it with some company who can lock me out at any time. I mean, I probably would be fucked in case of a fire. Another one of my issues is that it's in your browser. And I know this is a me problem, but I get so easily distracted and suddenly I'm in another tab and 12 hours deep in bats on YouTube. Now I want to briefly acknowledge the elephant in the room. Google Docs does use AI. I know there's been a lot of talk about it, if they use your data, and according to their terms and services, they don't. The only data from you it has access to is that the AI in that document has access to that document. If you move to a different document, it's supposed to not have anything with any of your other documents to do. Trust it if you want. That's up to you, but it's something I think you should be aware of. Speaking of companies implementing AI, our second free writing software is Notion. This is another platform who has implemented AI and claims that it does not use your data. They state very clearly that they want to protect their users' data. I will put it on the screen so you can read it yourself, but I do want to trust them because I use it for scripting my videos and planning out content. Things that I don't need save files for. Like I said, I haven't used Notion to write a novel or even a short story before, but I do use it for scripting my videos, and it's also one of those you can move between devices, so I can keep my script on my iPad and I don't have to go between my computer, which is over there all the time. But I like that there's a lot of templates available and you can customize them, and like people actually sell Notion templates for things, so there is a community aspect to it that does not exist in Google Docs. But I will try it out to write a short story or rewrite a short story. I searched up a template for novel writing, this one here. I basically just used the first one I could find to make it easy and simple, and I like that you can keep things collected in one place, something I do miss with the other of the free resources on this list. But it does feel a bit more aimed towards like blog posts and not like fiction, especially with the formatting. I miss the formatting most, like being able to indent only the first line of a new paragraph, and I also like really don't know how you would export this one. No, actually this kind of looks pretty good as a PDF. It's not perfect, but it's absolutely passable for like a short story. I still believe this is more aimed and kind of works better for things like blog posts, articles, any kind of writing except like longer fiction or fiction overall. I do like the planning aspects and the fact that you can keep things very collected without having a network of folders. And also switching between devices is nice. Next on my list is my personal favorite out of the free options, LibreOffice. It's free, open source. It also feels very similar to Microsoft Word, which I think most of us have used, even if it was just in school, but it's not on this list. This is the closest thing, I would say, and it also works with Microsoft Word documents. Same as with Google Docs, it does keep track changes and comments and all of that good stuff that you don't really want, but you need anyway. It works pretty similar to Google Docs, just without the share functions of Google Docs. I wrote all of Keep Me Breathing in Libre, and also a lot of short stories, first drafts, first draft to The Strongest Ray in a Punk. And I've only ever had issues with it when I decided to join the like beta testing thing. There were some bugs and crashes because you're literally testing new things out. But if you use like the stable version, everything have worked pretty good. Like my biggest issue is that when I open the document, it jumps to where it wants to be instead of to where I was last time. But you know, you can easily move around, especially if you're using headers and the navigation menu. Like compared to Google Docs, this one can handle pretty big documents. Like I said, all of Keep Me Breathing was in one document, including comments and track changes. No problems, just doing its job as a word processor. And this is probably the one I would recommend the most to authors starting out. They also have like a decent amount of customization available. You can change the colors of things and fonts, but I don't really have much more to say. It's a word processor and a word processor only. It works great. But pretty much the only negative I have is that if you like to do a lot of world building, you have to do it elsewhere. It's only a word processor. My other half wanted me to include Notepad because he uses it to script his videos. I personally need structure, and Notepad is just like basically a white screen with text, which I guess actually works for some people with like distraction-free things. For me, it gets too much of a distraction when it's nothing else happening. It's an option. I don't want to go into it. Let's move on. On to the paid ones. I want to start with Campfire. I've heard a lot of good things about Campfire, mostly from like other writers, and from my understanding it's writing, world building and publishing all in one platform. And I like the idea of many of the things I've heard about, like being able to publish it directly to their publishing site and having like things inserted so that when a reader reaches a certain point they get more information if they want. And overall, like I said, I've heard a lot of good things about it. I don't think I've heard anything bad about it. So I wanted to try it out. They also have a pretty decent trial period. Is not the right word. It's more, you get 25k words. That's how much you can write in the manuscript, and you get some of the consoles in a limited amount. Another thing, just looking into it, that I do like is that they have not really a set pricing. They have very customizable pricing where you choose what you want to use and pay for that only. And while they do seem to be like a subscription-based thing, they do have a lifetime payment option, like one-time lifetime access fee, and the prices doesn't seem too crazy for me. But yeah, I actually really like the fact that you pick and choose what you want to be using and only pay for that. So I actually like this one too. It's a bit of a mix of World Anvil and Scrivener from this little experience I have testing it out. The manuscript console is just writing. You can choose between chapters and or write everything all in one place. The other consoles actually has like templates, and I wouldn't say prompts, but each of them seems to be built around the thing they are about. Like the language panel, you can add symbols and pronunciation, and in the magic panel you can like add history and consequences and prices. So I do think this is very aimed at like high fantasy, high sci-fi writers. That's not to say you can't use it if you write contemporary or don't have the extended world building, but it does allow for that extended world building to take place and kind of holds your hand through it, which I think personally is super nice, especially if you don't usually make up languages, but this one story needs it. Then you have like a guide for it. Now, I'm not trying out the publishing option just because I don't have anything ready to publish, but I do like that this is the only software in this list that has that option, especially since they already have like readers and a reading platform. While I haven't really checked out their reading side, I would assume there's probably more fantasy than contemporary, just because it seemed very aimed at fantasy in the authors. Whew. And with those out of the way, my personal favorite for novel writing and fiction writing, Scrivener. This is a big software. Like, it's been talked about. It's my personal favorite, and while I'm still fairly new to it, I do believe it works very well for my kind of writing style and my need to keep everything in one place. Like, I have organized folders. This is just easier. You can like insert characters and you can put in settings and pretty much anything you want. It's very customizable. Now, I haven't changed very much. I downloaded a pre-made theme just to get started because I did not want the white distractions and I prefer something darker. But while there is a learning curve, for me it was worth it because everything can be kept very organized. You can move things around, which you can't do in something like Libre unless you manually copy and paste it into the right places. But I do like that you can just switch things around. You can have different text files for different scenes if you want. It's one of those things that you can make them as advanced as you want, but you don't necessarily have to. And if you've been here a while, you know I did the controversial writing challenge last year, and I used Scrivener. It was my first time for that project. It worked great. No lagging, and I'm still moving over. Like, Keep Me Breathing was purely in Libre because I had gotten so far that a complete rewrite or organizing it into Scrivener wouldn't have been worth it. But my future projects, even the ones where the first draft is in Libre, I always do a rewrite. I also explored out an EPUB for that first draft I wrote last year, and it looks great. Nothing advanced, but they do have a pretty good like formatting system, and I don't need my EPUBs to look fancy. Not yet, at least. And also, can I show you this? You can mark your drafts. So no more final, I promise fucking final drafts. It really is like a folder, but in one big document instead. Now, Scrivener is a bit on the pricier side, but they do have a 30-day trial. And don't worry, if you don't write every day, it's a 30-day of opening your documents. So if you write every day, you have 30 days. If you write every other day, it's technically 60 days. As long as you don't open the document and stare at it for 3 days straight. Like last November, I mainly did the NaNoWriMo challenge to get the 50% discount on Scrivener, and a bit to get like a month's worth of content, but the 50% off of Scrivener was very useful and a very big motivator. Like I said, what software works best for you depends a whole lot on your needs and preferences, and these are far from every writing software out there. And I do use almost all of these, but for different things. Like I said, I use Google Docs for beta reading and feedback and sharing, and I use Notion for video scripts, content planning, a blog post here and there. And while I'm moving from Libre to Scrivener for fiction writing, I still use LibreOffice for like cover letters and just smaller writing. And everyone's writing is different, every person works differently. So while Scrivener is what works best for me, some wild creatures out there might prefer Notepad. And I obviously didn't talk about every writing software out there. So if there's anything you want to add, just feel free to add to it in the comments. Knowing about different softwares can't be bad, right? Thank you so much for watching. Have a great adventure, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!